Hello and welcome to episode 51 of Let's Talk Tactics. I'm your host, Zach Burrell.
Hey, I'm Daniel Boone.
And I'm Luck.
And this week we are joined by fellow content creator Reindell. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, thank you for joining sort of last minute. Definitely apologize for that, but awesome to have you here. Now, I did say you do make content. If you want to kind of plug your stuff, we'll do it in the beginning this time instead of the end. Kind of what you do for the community, what kind of content you make.
Oh yeah, I mainly work on YouTube. I do a little bit of Twitch streaming, but it's mainly YouTube stuff. I'll do some unit reviews, the typical should you pull and where should you invest in the game. And then I love doing a lot of manual gameplay. That's CM, like what you guys cover most of the time, but also challenge runs. Like I'll do the Nightmare Quest with MR or lower only units and a lot of stuff like that, because manual gameplay can also be PvE if you give yourselves proper challenges. So I would say that's what my content revolves around the most. And you can find that at Reindell on YouTube.
Yeah, we'll have your link down below, and yeah, definitely a fan of all of the above. That's excellent. Instead of just kind of, here's my auto 120 team going in doing the nightmare, like you're just like, all right, now we got, we're gonna prove ourselves with this one. But before we get going into the content, let's have you do the normal sort of intro question. So you already introduced who you are, but tell us your history with the Final Fantasy franchise, how you got into War of the Visions, and then what sort of steered you towards the manual, I guess manual in general for you, but manual PvP content.
Oh yeah. So Final Fantasy, my first Final Fantasy game was actually quite similar to War of the Visions. It was Final Fantasy Tactics Advance. So I never had the chance to own like PlayStation systems until I was an adult. And so I did not play the original Final Fantasy Tactics, but I had the Game Boy version where they were Viera and Fencers and etc. And it was my favorite game for a very long time. I think I platinumed the game and then the second one as well when it was released. So when I got into War of the Visions, what interested me was getting back that feeling. I didn't care about the auto button. I just wanted to play the same game as, what nostalgia would give me. So that's why I was so interested in the class match portion of it. I joined War of the Visions, I think, in week 2. So it was really early in the game story, and I've been playing since. It took me a while to get competitive in class matches, mainly because I loved pulling units and building units that were zero popular and not good. And so, my first couple class matches, I was playing Frederica, Yerma, and trying to make these teams work, and it was kind of difficult, but I had a lot of fun with it.
Awesome. Yeah, you said Frederica as like not popular, and it hurt my soul a little bit, but I definitely understand. I was like oh, yeah, Yerma's impressive though.
And we have to take into account, I think, that Frederica was released when what's her name? Agrias was super strong in the meta. And so you're running a high faith tank in front of somebody that's going to stop you every single time you play. So I ended up eventually pairing her with Rosa when she was released and trying to make these things work. But it was hardcore. Like every fight, I would be like, well, another Agrias. Look at me with my high faith frontliner. And it was terrible.
Yeah, definitely rough times, but at least her 120 kind of puts her a little more in that sort of viability space. Also, I think we have a lot more sources of stop resistance now, which is real nice, just for that specific interaction. But we'll have to see what Agrias's EX does if and when that ever comes out. Imagine it's just like ignore stop resist on hit or whatever. It's like a passive or something stupid like that.
Why would you say that?
Ignore status resist or something. Yeah, that'd be really dumb. But anyway, yeah, right.
At least it's a base 25, so like the ribbon stops it,
The old-fashioned coin flip. I think it's kind of where we first started talking about that.
I would not be too surprised if she got the typical plus 20 base chance on her status effects, though, just like Shadow Lynx gets, and that would make her very scary, while still being somewhat counterable.
Oof. Oh, that's gross. All right, so let's begin this week. We'll catch up real quick on a unit we did skip. I think we'll do Halloween next week probably, because there's actually a lot of releases with that between EXs and other things. We kind of want to cover the class match. I think there's a fair amount to talk about with that. So let's begin though. Is it Varus? Is that what we're calling him? Varus? Is there a pronunciation that we heard in the story that's not that, or we're going with Varus? All right, so he's a wind unit with a new job, Blade Soul. It's essentially just a magic samurai, is my understanding. I haven't used it yet. I haven't used him, but he has some interesting things here. So stat wise, I mean, he comes in with the berserk resist and slow resist, with a little bit of confusion as well. But his 50%, like, it's good against and I guess like the random 2B, but Berserk is still a
Silence.
pretty niche. What's that?
Looks like silence.
Did I say confusion?
Mhm.
Okay, it's silenced for sure. Sorry about that. But yeah, so Berserk is kind of still a niche status effect overall. So while it is nice, you won't get like necessarily fully bombed by a King Mont with like double quicken or something. It's still generally niche. Slow, occasionally useful, but at least he doesn't have all the broken ones like charm and stop and disable whatever. So you can still utilize that against him. It's cost 90, kind of rough. Resistance wise, he's got some slash resist, some pierce resist, missile resist, neutral magic, and -5 to strike. So just really no major weaknesses across that. And I'm thinking about, I guess like if you're playing Oron and Valric with like the ice strike units, maybe, but it again very very niche. So kind of like his weaknesses and strengths are sort of both niche, but fair amount of health, 3.7k, without any sort of espers or anything. But what I want to talk about is his skills. So actually, first before I get into this, has anyone actually built him yet? Pulled and built him?
I have
I
not.
missed him,
Reindell?
unfortunately.
I skipped.
Yep. I think we all skipped. So
I tried for him, but I wasn't lucky.
oh, did you really? Oh well, you have the win team, right? So you're trying to get like mastery
Yeah.
and all that.
I spent like I went to like 1 pity, but I was like, oh, I guess I didn't get him.
Okay. He was the first one. I was like, no, not even nothing. Just not even. I generally throw like 2k at every banner just to see what happens. Like maybe I get a first pull. I don't even think I did that on his banner, but it was just a weird time. There's a lot to max. But anyway, my body unity as a passive, you get spirit and HP, so it's that 12/12 sort of resistance. There's another job that has it, I think, that exact spirit HP. I can't.
I think it's Kododama.
Is it Kodama? Okay. And then oh no, because he has Kodama, he gets the spirit earth resist.
Oh, there you have it.
I don't know. Anyway, and then he also has Blade Soul lore, which kind of a nod there to the samurai job, but he gets 12% agility and 40 spirit penetration. So here we are again. New units getting released. They always have this 40 pen somewhere in their build. I generally can only see him using that, and then either his Mind Body Unity or his Earth Spirit's Blessing. Like magic up is okay, but I don't know. I feel like the utility of the resistance is a lot more impactful.
That nullified doom though.
You know, these PvE content, or if you're scared of Ziza because she's meta or something, I don't know. Sure, he has March of the Saints for his random white mage
Dude, wait until we get like a 67% base like LB doom. Wouldn't that be something?
That would
Or
be
someone
insane.
decides, decides to run
not that
Etra
bad.
Etra, oh yeah, Etra has that too. That
with a
be-
2-turn
yeah,
kill
yeah,
Doom.
yeah.
Oh, is it 2-turn?
Well, it's 3 turns, but it takes at the beginning of the unit's turn, so it's going to go 2, 1, dead. So you actually get to play 2 turns before you die.
Okay.
So it's interesting. Base chance 52, but then who's going to run Etra?
I don't know. We know a
Didn't
certain
you run
Mako.
Etra?
Wait, what?
I thought Reindell ran Etra. Did you or?
I didn't EX her, but I really
Oh, you
want to. I'm just
Okay.
I don't have enough blossoms to EX all I would want, but it seems like such a fun niche unit to try out.
Yeah, one of my guildies is a super Etra fan. It's kind of his. I wouldn't say it's his waifu necessarily, but like so many decisions for his account have been revolved around like making Etra better. And I was like, dude, I
was
respect it, but man, you gotta what?
Who was it?
Its name is Fire. Their name is Firesped. So
Oh, okay.
it's no one that has been on the podcast before. They don't really do live PvP at all. They have, but it's not like a consistent thing. It's just a really random. You know, everyone has their unit. So let's see. Going into the main job here, the kind of spam ability, as I call it, so like the really low AP, lots of use. Usually it's their starter ability too. Is Magic Buster with a 121 damage mod and a double break on attack and magic at 39%, which is pretty good for just a generic sort of attack. Range 3, height 2. Height 2 is great. This is basically Hien, right? Because Hien has a range of 3 in height 2, so it's Magic Hien.
Yeah.
Then Sword Song Formation. I'm just going to skip going with the regulars. I'm just going to go right to the X upgrades, unless you guys think there's value in kind of saying what changes. But generally, I think a lot of people are 115 or 120ing these days, at least for new releases. So Sacred Sword Song Formation is a slash attack 25 buff for allies and a plus around, and then crit rate 20 for self and spirit 15 for self. So definitely have this sort of magic tanky vibe as well, in addition to being samurai. So I guess instead of like the normal samurai sub job is sort of evady as their sub theme, whereas this one's a lot more about magic tanking from what I'm seeing. Then this ability is really cool. I actually really like this. It's a 200 damage mod, range 2, Bamboo Splitter. You restore CT by 25 on crit. That is an extremely cool ability. I don't know how abusable that is, but it definitely is something that would... This is like the type of skill that would make me build a unit, because there's probably something there. Just not this time, I guess, even though I'm saying that.
Yeah, and I think it's worth mentioning that 25 for players that might not be as experienced with CD manipulation is more than it costs you to use an ability. So you actually take your next turn faster because you hit with that move than if you had decided not to act.
That's fair. Yeah, actually, that's true. Because, yeah, 20 for move, 20 for action, and 40 for taking turn, right? Or is it 60?
60 for taking turn, then 20, 20,
60,
yeah.
Huh. It's pretty cool because his buff you just mentioned increases his crit by 20. So
Right.
like it kind of can spiral.
I'd have to look at the vision cards to see what the setup would look like to try to get if there's like a party crit boost. I'm not super familiar with the win VCs.
I
Maybe
think
Daniel, you
Prodijee vision card increases crit rate by 25. Or maybe is it crit damage and then Exorcist is crit rate? I know they have one of each.
Yeah, it's hard to... You don't really use them that often, so like it's hard to...
Crit damage is on 2B's VC.
Yeah, crit rate is
Exorcist,
Exorcist.
maybe?
Yeah, it is Exorcist. I just checked. I just
Oh,
looked
it's
it up.
Exorcist. Oh, sweet. I like that vision card a lot, actually. I haven't used it in a while, but I just used that on Oron. But then the next buff is it revivifying or revivifying? I'm pretty sure it's revivifying.
Yeah.
Barrier. It's a 40 TP skill, which I always like to see on units that seem like they want to do a lot more damage, because it gives you a lot of AP. It reduces magic damage taken. This is another one of those HP buff or barriers, where it's a 3,500 HP magic damage barrier for self, and then it also grants regen, which is I like just tacking on regen, because again, these days, unless you have this super pumped unit, elemental advantage, and all this stuff, you're generally not one-shotting somebody, so you generally get some value out of regen.
Now, I haven't built Jaden, so I haven't been able to test that out myself, but do you know whether an HP barrier stacks with a percentage barrier, or are they separate like others?
They don't stack.
Okay.
So it counts as it's a magic damage barrier, right? Because it's specifically to magic damage. So you could have this buff for magic damage and also a physical one?
I believe so, though.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's specifically magic damage.
Okay.
Whereas if it was reduce the next damage taken, it would be like Mastery TMR, where it's both.
Yeah.
And then if you put a different one on, it replaces.
And that's why Jaden's, since Jaden's is both, it doesn't stack.
Gotcha. And his is only like 2,500, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, his is less, yep.
So this TP skill, just like on a unit, is just way better than a TMR. But
I just wish that we knew the rationale behind this switch to just flat HP. It doesn't really make much sense to me. Maybe I'm missing something. I mean, it's better for units that can mitigate more damage.
It'd be really good on like Whisper. Like if Whisper had buffs like this, where it's like reduce the next damage taken by like 2k, well, she might just take no damage. But then Counterman Slash, which is a range 3 AoE of 1, 170 mod, and before the damage is dealt, reduces chance to counter by 100. It gets an additional 30% accuracy, and it's just damage. But it's AoE, which is always nice to have on shorter range units like this, so that you have a little more utility when you do get in. And then Spirit Stealer is the EX25 skill. It's a 165 mod that life steals 30% of the damage done. It's only range 2. It hits like the Viking sort of, or like, what are the jobs? Like Viking has it. I think Dual Gunner has something this shape, where it's like the 1 and then the 3. Yeah.
And then Stern, Runite Stern has the Catastrophe, but with longer range.
I guess if your opponents are lined up like that, it's pretty good. But this seems pretty underwhelming for a job 25 skill upon initial evaluation. But then the LB, jumping down there real quick, is range 4, range height 1. Wish it was range height 2. Why not? It's not that much more. But 200 mod with a 67% of paralyze. So paralyze, man, you want to talk about a tilting status. Like, that 80%, if it ever
Always procs.
doesn't proc, it just feels awful. Like, yeah, you just did damage, and you could have used a different skill with a more impactful thing. And man, Daniel, I know in the back of your mind you're just thinking there's always that one match. It always comes back to my brain. Like, oh,
It's just so trolly. Like you're like, okay, I got a 20% chance. It's 1 in 5. It's gotta happen. Never happens.
I've told the
You're like,
story before,
"Fuck."
but in case Reindell, you haven't heard it, we used to do MR matches on stream, and we both paralyzed each other, and all 3 of mine hit, all 3 of his missed.
Oh my gosh.
I hit the 20% every time, and he hit the 80% every time.
It's insane.
It was so dumb. We were just like, oh man, I felt so bad. You got me back in the tournament though, so it's okay.
Yeah, looking at Varus's overall kit, there's one thing that's I think is a major strike against him, and well, 2 things actually. First, his low luck. He does have a move with accuracy up, but generally, if he's not built for accuracy, good luck. Like fighting Earth Evasion if you hit them. But the other thing is he's a magic, another one of these magic bruiser type units, right? He increases his spirit, he has a barrier, but he's high faith. And so he's not actually much tankier than other units against magic because of that, which I think is a little bit iffy. Like if a physical attacker job had these abilities, they would make a super good magic bruiser, but I'm not convinced about him because of that.
Yeah, he can stack a lot of spirit, especially with his spirit buff. But I mean, we see a lot of spirit penetration on magic attackers nowadays. At least, like obviously with this unit in particular, he gets 40. So, like while he's resistant to slash and he can build spirit, I'm kind of curious to see how he stands up against Spellblades, Elena, etc.
Yeah, I mean, also having the neutral magic attack resistance is a little weird, because unless you are against these Fryavias and and Elenas with magic slash, yeah, your resistances don't line up too well. Like you have 5% missile for what, Jaden? I guess. Like it's a really weird combination of things, and the short range, you have to be able to get in against the various magic attackers, which are getting better and better range between Jaden or I mean, even like the Spellblade classes are getting longer range. It's a really weird combination. Granted, you do get so he has Kodadama and White Mage as his sub jobs. Full life, having full life on a damage based unit. Well, is he a damage based unit or is he a like bruiser? I actually don't know where he falls.
He has 200 mods and quite top tier magic with spirit penetration. I would count him as a damage unit.
That's what I would think too. But so having that full life on the sub is pretty nice, and then also just protected shell on the approach is always nice too. Asuna on backup. I don't think you're casting like Kira a lot of the time. Maybe Kurata in a pinch, but it'd be interesting to see him on kind of like a support-ish team, and with like the Halloween units coming out, maybe him, Halloween Leela, get some like magic win stuff going. And I guess actually I kind of skipped over his main job, sub job options. So I love the name of this skill for what it does, Slate Wiper. Range 4 with a cross AoE. It's only a damage 121 mod, but it is a dispel that also dispels haste. Pretty useful. Then also Brave Breaker 165 mod, decrease bravery by 40. This is another one of those crazy. Actually, that's only on crit. It's another one of these crazy 40 bravery breaks that I don't know, you hit with 2 of those and you're pretty close to clucking, so it's
Yeah, I mean it's insane. It's not like the Dragon Roar or whatever. This is not a chance for it to apply. It applies on crit. That's crazy. It sucks that it's on his main sub job, and like I feel like he's always going to be run on White Mage. There's just too many good things about that, and it sucks because Kodadama Wielder, he gets unavailable pain, so he gets that guaranteed hit. Especially with like the cast time on that, but you're probably always going to see him on White Mage, honestly.
What are we saying, Rando?
I was just gonna say the Brave Breaker. I could see raid builds with that. Like we know the chicken plans where you had to rely on the 25% proc chance to ever get it. This guy doesn't care. If we end up having 2 or 3 units with that job, they're just gonna decrease everybody's bravery together, which could go for some very interesting, very niche, but very interesting strategies.
Double
But yeah.
quicken. Let's go. Just put you down to 19 bravery off the bat, or I guess 17 bravery.
Yeah, and even if you don't chicken, like, against a physical attacker, you're severely hampering their damage. So that's like an important component that you have to take into account as well.
And some reaction abilities as well.
Yeah.
So the crit build
Reflex.
Varus.
There you go. Well, unless they reflex the attack, you know. I do have to disagree a little here, though. Kododama Wheeler is a hell of a sub job, and it gives him a different damage type.
And extra mobility.
And mobility, exactly. The nimble movement, like you said, the sure hit, and honestly, bursting light can be pretty nasty, depending on how he lines up, because he does have so much magic, like you're saying. Like, the 220 mod in a giant AoE like that, if you position correctly, like, whew, just wipe people off. Also, when his main job has such short range and high damage output, some utility attached to it, being able to have a gap closer from 3 spaces away. Again, I'm mostly thinking maybe about like quickening stuff. But like if you just doing that on a 205 mod magic instant hop in and then follow up with whatever. I mean, you could line up the counterman slash. You can line up a spirit stealer. I could see it being all right.
I would have another reason why Kododama might be good, and it's just if you look at vision cards, there aren't that many vision cards that he can equip. Like magic slash VCs are rather rare, so you're quite likely to have the Typhon VC on him, which increases magic type attacks and accuracy, and then gives him the 30% magic, which is insane. So with that, he'll do significant damage with his Kododama sub as well.
See that? Let me pull up real quick. How many magic VCs are there? So there's Mobius of Despair and Truth, sort of. If someone got that.
If someone has it, yeah.
Like, it's such a weird. I never in like my wildest dreams would have imagined this didn't get a fire party ability, just because that is rain on the front of it, right? Like, I'm not. It's kind of like edgy rain, but it just confuses me so much.
It's not rain. It's from the game.
Is it not rain? Oh, it's Mobius, right? Not fucking FFB. Although I guess who was anyone from that universe in Mobius?
I don't
No,
think
we
so.
just got the cards.
Okay. No, I mean in
Yeah,
the game
okay.
Mobius, is anybody in there from Final Fantasy Brave Exvius?
I never played it. I don't know. Tell us
Yeah,
in the
no.
comments.
Trivia time. Then we got what? Downtime Exorcist. Yeah, I mean, I guess what is it? It's gonna be Typhon, Tetra, and then Dealer's Choice for the last card, depending on what your other unit is. It's such a Magic Wind is not super thrilling in terms of
No.
having all 3 pieces in all 3 slots.
I mean, Solidus, I guess. He already has slash res.
It'd be nice to have a magic 50% up win card.
Like Ramu. Oh, you're saying wind card. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. What does Marlboro do? Magic resistance. All right, of course it does. Anyway, yeah, I mean, he's a cool unit. He does. It's like he's pulled in a lot of directions, but at least the directions are pretty solid each way you choose. So I don't know. I could see him being fun and useful, but definitely nothing that's like, oh my god, I gotta have this in my kit or in my kind of like toolbox here. Anybody else have a different opinion? Locke, what do you how do you feel about this unit? Obviously, you didn't pull him, but
Yeah, I didn't pull him, but there was a couple of things that I wanted to mention. The first thing was the Brave Breaker. I mean, I asked some people around because I mean I don't have him, but I asked some people if this skill stacks, and they said it does not. So I heard like if it doesn't stack, you can't.
oh,
really
it's for
quicken
3
into it 3 times.
Right.
turns.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you can't really do that, but like even in raid bosses, I mean, you can lower it by 40, which is good, but then you probably need some other source to bring it actually down to the chicken status. Like you can't.
Oh, that's so sad.
Yeah, that sucks, but you know.
Shit, I missed that. I missed the 3 turn part. Damn it.
Yeah. And then I don't know. I mean, I think I kind of agree with Daniel here about the white mage probably being the better sub. I mean, I feel like he'll perform better in manual than in like auto PvP. And auto PvP, I mean, I don't even know if the auto will use any of the white mage sub skills. I've actually faced him in arena a couple times.
Same.
And I've not seen him use anything, but it doesn't have enough room. He uses his he uses one buff, which is usually his TMR buff, and then he moves up and then he attacks, so he doesn't have any chance to use anything. But in manual PvP, I mean, like if you're approaching, you know, like Frederica or something, he actually might have a chance to do it with protect. and then to keep healing as he approaches, right? Or healing the party or something. I mean, it's still going to be hard, but like in theory, that's a possible way of playing it. I still don't think it's very good, but I think maybe there's a chance and somebody could figure out how to do it. And I feel like white mage is probably what they would go with instead of Kodama. Uh, but I mean, move 3 is kind of, I don't know, it sucks. This guy. So I don't know. It's like it reminds me of Raldor, like when Raldor, although Raldor actually does have move 4, I believe, with this
Move
Steve
4,
sub,
jump
right?
2.
Yeah. But I felt like, I looked at him and I'm like, a lot of people are interested. I think both of you guys were interested as well. But I was like, his range is just so low on his skills. It's like range 3. And I never really saw many people using him. I've seen like niche builds here and there, and like some people that are like huge fans of him use him, but wasn't that popular. And I kind of feel like he fits in with similar to Raldor, although he can have move 4 with quarter down with nimble movement. But I think thematically, it's just instead of physical damage, he does magic damage, high modifier, high modifying skills, but low range.
Actually, real quick, you did mention, I don't know if you meant his TMR, but you just meant use a TMR first. But his TMR is actually a new source of faith
I was
being
about to say
increased
that.
by 6, which is pretty cool. So you could end up doing, and it has 2 casts. So if you're ever doing faith training, that could actually be something you would like to have access to. It gives 40% magic and 30% dex for 3 turns as well. And it has, again, 2 uses, 30 TP. So it's actually not bad overall. Now, being armor is a little weird and a little awkward because you have to give up that slot if you actually want to use it in a match or something. But I think even just having that faith attached to it makes him at least attracted to 99. If you're not necessarily interested in finishing him out. But
And if you take him on 10,000 quests, you can get the title Crownless King as a player.
it's Crownless King is this thing?
Yay!
Nice.
Yeah, I think so.
Hey, I finally got my first 10k title
no shit.
a week or
Nice.
2 ago.
Which
Yeah,
one?
Mish, finally.
Oh, nice.
Badass.
I'm so surprised.
Restoration leader. Yeah, he's just been on my skip ticket teams for ages now, and I finally got it. Because I don't skip ticket with the same teams. It's like as soon as I get like all my
Yeah.
affinity up, I just switch units out. So
does he have resonance with like every Esper now?
he's got he can use like Lamia. he's got resonance with so many different espers, and then most of the units he's at least 3 with. the Swiss Army knife unit, sort of, kind of. But, and then did you have more thoughts about it, Daniel?
No, I think that about wraps it up.
Reindell?
Mhm.
I guess you made a whole video about it, right?
Yeah, I did. Well, my overall conclusion was that he seems like a very interesting unit, but compared to like all the units we have that wow me, he just seemed like, oh, maybe I could find a way to make him play, which is not enough compared to what we have elsewhere. If he was cost 70 and I could fit him in a team like that, then he would be a very interesting pick, but he's not 90 cost 90 worth, in my opinion.
I guess real quick, we'll also talk about his weapon. He has I'm glad it's a katana, not some like new weird item type. Like at least they kept it so we can use all our same books and things. And if we ever have a samurai with a magic sub job, you can do some cheesy builds with trying to make them do as much as possible, like we've talked about Red Mage Ryu before. But yeah, so I think generally we're gonna actually I can see an argument for the crit version, but magic 188 on the magic version is pretty high. And then it gives slash tech 15, which helps all of his skills. He's the first unit of this type. So granted, he's going to have the most sort of basic setup for the first magic katana. But do you think 14 crit rate is enough to make you build the crit version, given the fact that he has a lot of benefits on crit? And is that worth the 38 magic drop? I think it might be if you're not going to build crit elsewhere. Anybody have specific thoughts on that? Or
Well,
It's an
the issue that I always have with crit weapons is 14 is not that high, right? You put bells on your unit, you have the same amount of crit, and
Right.
there's a lot of other ways to get your 14 crit where this becomes a wasted stat.
Yep.
So I don't know. If it was like 25 crit, I would say this is the best feast. Go for it. At 14, it's really walking the line, and I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I'm just
that's generally how I feel as well.
I agree, and I'm just kind of sad that it doesn't get like an added like 30 wind damage. I think that would really push this over the top for Varus. You know, the 15 slash 30 like wind attack.
I think maybe just because it's the first one, they want to kind of set it up so if they release another unit with that main job, they have that weapon already built. But you could also just tack it on there, and then any other element uses it anyway for the slash that it already has. So I can say it both ways. I wonder if it
Yeah.
would still have the crazy high magic, but yeah, even if this was 20 crit, it'd be better. But yeah, 14 is such a weird number, specifically because Bells exists. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any
And
idea
then
what? Oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say another reason why players might not necessarily like super want to go for Varus is just because eventually, I know Prodijee, you don't look at the schedule so much, but like the Water Selection Quest unit has the same main job,
Mhm.
and so you'll get a cost 80 version of the same main job for Z eventually.
So yeah, I feel like I saw that unit at one point.
Yeah, Blade Soul, Rune Knight, Black Mage, so no full life, but still a solid kit, and Rune Knight as well. So
Drain
It's a
Evo
farm.
and the slash attacks, man.
Yeah, drain
Oh,
it
that's
for a
an injury.
slash. That would be nice.
Wait, Drain Evo and slash. Oh, okay, is it a soldier? Oh, Drain Evo.
No,
What
it's
am I?
yeah.
Stop.
It's,
Yeah, God damn it. Like Drain Evo. What? I was thinking Drain Force.
Oh,
I
yeah,
dealt with
it's all
so.
good.
We're about to talk about Drain Force. Don't you worry. But god damn that skill. I was looking at the units in JP to see if I could quickly look at her. I'll do that while you guys are talking about class match. But yeah. Any other thoughts about the katana? I mean, it's just pretty generic. I think it is what it is. Maybe have one of each version if you want to really have like all your builds covered, but mainly magic, I would say.
Yeah, I
Alright.
typically just go for the highest magic stat or attack value. I don't. I generally don't really build anything else like aim version or crit version for anything. So I only usually get one of each anyway. So that's what I
You're
usually.
telling me you
focus
don't like my crit ice brand?
I have a crit Ice Brand for Frederica purposes. It has
Yup.
more magic than the
My-
assault one.
Mine was for Nasha, but
I'm 2 recipes away from my second Ice Brand +5.
I
That's
got
crazy,
two.
dude.
Pretty happy with them.
All right, so let's start. Oh wait, what was that? You said something?
I thought they sold the +5 ice brand twice, so I thought everybody would have two.
They have, yeah.
I didn't.
The
I was stingy. I wanted to build it. I
Yeah,
was like
no
halfway
Viz.
through my recipe, so I'm like,
Yeah,
I'm not gonna
right.
spend Vizier.
Because I
I'll
never
earn that
actually
shit.
bought any of the recipes, so I was like, oh well, this is a no-brainer.
Oh yeah, no. I built them one recipe at a time through the shop, just like I'm eventually going to get a Phoenix down, perhaps.
Wait, a Phoenix Town?
It exists in the game, but I've been told it appears in the shop. I never got one from the shop though.
I've never seen it, and I buy
I-
things on the shop like religiously. Like I'm almost at 999 like extra large healing pots.
They're so useful for my
Those
dumb
are-
challenge runs.
Those are for pages.
Oh, do you
here.
use them?
Oh yeah, man. When you're trying to do nightmare content with MR lower units, you need items. It saves your butt.
Really interesting.
yeah.
I've never used an item in my entire War of the Visions career.
Yeah,
I don't even think I equipped one because there was like the sub quest and the hard quest might have been like equip an item or something. Like there was some reason, but I took them off. I'm like, I don't even want this menu to appear.
Point of interest, like actually the rarest item that I've seen in the shop is the high potion.
Yeah.
Like
You don't buy it
I'm
from
only-
Vizor though, do you?
No, high potion is for Gil.
Right. But you don't buy any of the ones that are.
Oh, I do.
You buy the
use-
Vizor?
Yeah, the extra large pots are like 3 Vizier each, or 3 paid Viz, and
3
I am
normal
almost
viz,
at.
yeah.
I'm pretty sure. Oh, is it normal?
Yeah, they're normal
Oh,
viz.
But yeah, I'm almost at 999.
Why?
Because
3 viz a pot.
it's a thing.
Why?
It heals low
things.
faith units for 5,000. It's crazy good when your tank is in front and you can't have a healer reach.
In the beginning. So, all right, listen up.
I never
at
knew.
At the beginning of the game, I was like, one day these items will be useful, and that was the start.
Oh, I know. I didn't realize you bought the Vizier ones. I knew you bought
No.
the Gil ones, but oh, that's crazy. I was actually looking in the shop though, not gonna lie. If there was one that nullifies charm, I was gonna start buying those as like a collection,
hell
but
yeah.
I never saw one.
Can we use them in CM? We can't, right?
No. Oh my god, can you imagine?
That would be fun.
That's a whole theory crafting video right there. Like how broken would it be or how interesting or like would it help, hurt?
Can you imagine the one player that saved their Phoenix Downs winning because of that?
Oh man, that's crazy.
Class
Anyway,
match.
all right, class match. Yeah, let's start with Locke. Tell us about your class match experience, kind of where you ended up, what you used, if your team changed at all. Which, yeah,
So I used the same 3 units for all of class match. I used Jaden, Crowell, and Mont. That's the original Mont. That's how I get to the 230 cost. The idea was I started by looking at different units that can survive like the Frederica assault. And the one that I ended up going with was I needed somebody with 100% missile resistance. No, she has
just
like
needed the
she can get up to
100%.
I did
Needed it.
100% because I mean Frederica can negate most of that. Like she can negate 55% with the right build, but at least somebody else next to her, like a Cloud or I don't know, any other Rangers will not have that missile penetration. So Frederica can't one shot anyone. Usually she has to combo or quicken or something to get a second shot in, and then she can kill you. So with that, I was like, okay, so Jaden can survive and he can approach easily. I just have to make sure Cloud isn't in range to slash him because Cloud can kill him with slash damage. And that was how I started this team. So I was like, okay, this works. And I also have all the crystals to heal Jaden because I don't need to stay back. I can just approach. There's no there's no like harm in moving forward with them. So that's what I did. And I was easily able, like the first day, I think 4 out of the 5 matches were like Frederica plus something. And I won those pretty easily. His 100% missiles only last for 3 turns because I had to put the defense bracer on him. But that I was okay with 75% missile resistance, but I felt like Frederica at that point would just disable him because I mean they all have arm shot, and if you can't damage him, do arm shot, and he can't really do anything with returns, right? And he is at 99 faith, so not 97 faith. So I thought, okay, I really need the disable resist, so that was why I went with that choice. And yeah, I mean, I was very easy to win. But then after the first day, I very hardly saw Frederica ever again. I don't know what happened. Like everyone just
What?
switched over. I think I've seen like Duma faced me with the Frederica Cloud and Phoebe, and then I think I've seen like one other in the next like 7 days. So there's like 2 other times I fought the Frederica composition. I don't know why.
I
It
didn't
was
see
just
any for
very
the
rare.
first like 3 or 4 days because I had an anti-missile thing set up as well. It was just all mono earth and like a couple other things. Like, yeah, it was nuts. And then the last
Yeah.
2 days.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. I mean, I expected a lot of people to use it, and then I don't know. Like the first day, I'm like, yeah, this is what I expected. Like no quicken. I'm expecting these range teams to be popular, and also we just got the diamond code that makes them even more stronger with the increased AP and the missile resist penetration. But I don't know, they weren't there. So I did pretty well. I had 3 losses in the first 7 days, in total. And then the last day, once I got to the Platinum 1 promotion, I don't know, I just felt a huge relief, and I was like, okay, I I will like try to live stream my show. So I recorded as I was playing, and I usually make a lot more mistakes. And I had 2 matches left, and I lost both of them. So
Oh my gosh.
but it's fine. I mean, maybe my position would have gone up to like 3rd or something from 8th, but I still stay, Platinum 1. It's not a big deal. So yeah, I mean, it was okay. I made a lot of mistakes in the first of the second match, the first of the 2 matches. The second match, I didn't really have a chance. My opponent, he played. So instead of using Zazan or Mont as the 3rd to the Ketone UR Zazan comp, he used Phoebe. And the Phoebe would just follow behind Ketone and keep using full life and raise. And he hit the raise, which was like probably a 49% chance or something. And then I had like my Crowell was alive with like a little bit of HP and no AP. And the auto attack would have killed a Ketone, and I had a 64% chance to hit, and I missed. So he hit a 49%. I missed a 64. I can't do anything about that. That's what it is. One of the hardest matches I actually fought was against another Jaden, and this Jaden had 95% missile resist, but no disable resist, like no defense bracers. So this was the whole game, and he just charged from the very beginning, and he had a Fina behind him to heal up any damage that I would do. So there was like no way for me to approach. I got lucky, or I thought I got lucky, where I was able to charge ahead and kill Fina. But then, I mean, at that point, he would just like decimate my whole team because I couldn't really do anything with Jaden. And for my Jaden to kill his Fina, I had to get in range that his Jaden could like do damning thrust or something. So he killed me, and I had to take that gamble because otherwise, there's a full life coming up, and I didn't really have any chance to win. I think that I didn't have any. It was just like a full counter to my team basically. The ketone Zazan comps, they weren't too bad. I saw a lot of them from day 2 onwards. But yeah, usually I was able to win all of them except for the last one where that happened. But all the others I won. There were a couple that I won because of luck, because somebody missed a charm with the normal Zazan, somebody missed a stop with ketone, and I won both of those. And I think if those landed, I would have lost. But typically, most of the time, I was able to, win. It was easier if it was not a full evade comp. If they had at least one card like the Solitary Lion or something, that made it a lot easier because then my Crowell usually lands Dispel Barrage it's called Dispel Barrage, I believe, right? And I can remove the Utisemi's effect, which increases, missile resistance, and that 50 evade. So Jaden can also use other skills beside his normal 100% hit skill. But overall, it wasn't too bad. I had 3 units that all had a guaranteed missile attack, so I can easily chain and kill things. And the one thing that I had to pay attention to with Mont was that he's a lot slower. So until he uses his Keen Blade, he has to just stand still and wait. He can't use anything else. The first turn, he uses Immortal Spirit. But anytime, I think I lost like 2 matches where he Keen Bladed too early, or he moved to get into a better position to Keen Blade the next turn, and that never happened because he, the CT is just messed up and he can't do anything. So I just had to remember to always be patient and, don't use him until it's time to Keen Blade. But overall, it was a good season for me. I started at rank 60 and ended at rank 8.
Wait.
Yeah, you're in a really good position for next year. I'm starting at plat 2.
Yeah.
Now, if you're
it's a huge lead.
If you're at like plat 3, you go to gold 1. Do you go all the way down or
Gold Master?
Or gold master,
yeah.
right. Okay, damn. Because I think I was plat 3 when I ended. Shit. All right. Reindell, you want to go into it?
Yeah, sure. I finished the season 128th. I started at 360 something, so I did climb a little bit. Overall, I dropped 12 games through the season, so it wasn't the best season, but it wasn't all that terrible. What I was running for most of it was Victora, and then Elena and Fina. So I had the light damage carry squad and Victora. I built that after getting wrecked by missiles on day 1. So just like luck, I ran into a ton of them and I got wrecked. And so I just switched my Elena to have a defense bracer and guard Scorpion with all the missile resistance and lightning resistance nodes that I could get. And so Frederica's would need 4 shots to kill her, even with just to protect from Fina. And Fina was in her white mage sub job to be able to give that protect. And it was really funny whenever I did not lose any other gunner matchup. That was except for one Jaden matchup. But outside of that, it was very funny against missile. But of course, when you specialize yourself for something, you gain some other weaknesses. So I would say the toughest matches for me were the Ketone War Zazan normal Zazan matches. Especially early on in the season, I realized how bad I am at fighting slow Keenblade. Because you end up with a very interesting situation where you move forward, and on your Keenblader's first turn, if you pop Keenblade yourself, the enemy team just doesn't advance, and so you wasted it. But if you don't pop Keenblade, the enemy team that's slower will become faster, and they take their second turn before you take yours, and then they're in range to charm and drop their LBs and whatnot. And so it took me a while to figure out what's the proper approach is to that kind of team, just staying backwards more and not necessarily going for the crystal immediately. So that was a bit of a hurdle this season. And then the other thing that I found very challenging was fighting Kane, TMR, Elena for some reason, or Jaden's that get hasted on turn 1. So I fought some teams that had like Yuna, Phoebe, Jaden, for example. And what they would do is turn 1, re-raise on Jaden immediately, and then haste him, and then haste Yuna. And all they do is they don't move. And the second you advance, the hasted guy just takes so many turns at shooting your team that it's hard to advance into. So even with my 80% something missile resistance, doesn't really matter if they're taking 2 to 3 turns in a row before I can cross. So those were, I think, my biggest challenges. Other types of teams that tried to come into me, or missile teams, I would just rush them and take them. Victora being the powerhouse that she is, at just zone controlling. And then Elena and Tafina have crazy damage. If you set up a chain and kill with the ranged attack, you're good. So I just made sure their agilities were close enough that they would always take a turn together, and that was a pretty useful tool.
What were the agility values in general on those two? Just curious.
It was something around 111, I think, on my Elena. It was faster earlier in the season, but then when I switched to Guard Scorpion, I had to make her a bit slower. And then Fina was at roughly 100. So
Fina was at
eventually,
100?
I
Yeah.
believe. You know what? I can bring up the team again,
Especially
if you,
with
if you want
Bahamut
to.
DC.
But yeah, I was running her with Bahamut VC on herself and
Oh.
Odin Esper. And so these two together would give her pretty good accuracy and also the agility I wanted.
That's pretty crazy. I didn't realize she could get so high. Oof. Yeah, one of my most brutal losses was to a Jaden Fina team for sure. Like, it's if you're not prepared for it, it's so brutal.
Yeah.
Any other notable team comps you ran into, or interesting notes you have about the rule set and team building or anything like that?
I enjoyed the rule set quite a bit. I wasn't sure, but I looked into that and I was like, well, that's going to be a gunner nightmare. And I thought Jaden would lose out to a lot of matches against other gunners, but then I realized how crazy he could get in missile resistance, especially when I saw Luck feature him. But in my end, I had skipped him, and I really wanted to use Elena. So I think what really, I would say the one thing that really surprised me was how good, again, Seymour is. Because every single time I fight him, he ends up being a major threat. He doesn't really evade. He doesn't really do that much damage. But the fact that he's so hard to deal with as a backline Keenblader into Charm, and that he's usually paired with a Kingmont or somebody else that has the disable threat, made it interesting. I think all the teams that made me that scared me the most this season are teams where everybody could disable one way or another. So I saw a team with Katone, Kingmont, and Seymour, which was really interesting because it doesn't have the damage output that the Katone Warzazan would have. But all three of them, if they get into your team and you don't have the proper resistance, you just lose a unit or more. And so that's an interesting thing that I thought.
Yeah, I think there was a class. I think it was a class match that I used Seymour, Kingmont, and Mish. And you want to talk about like status effects all over the place, like that. I mean, that team's got all kinds of stuff. And I had Keenblade on Kingmont, so like part of my opener was just like lining up a Charm or a Toad or some CT down or whatever else, using like Caleb's Pride as setup and all that. Definitely fun teams, and I think that's actually what kind of nice cat, just out of nowhere, it's produced. I think that's part of the reason the UR Zazan, Katone, and OG Zazan team is so powerful, because they do have all those threats. I mean, UR Zazan maybe less so unless he gets behind you and does like the hamstring or whatever it's called, but the stop on Katone, the charm off of UR Zazan or OG Zazan, I mean, he could confuse dagger if you're immune to the other ones for some reason. That definitely hit me once. I mean, there's so much status threat on that team. What are you looking at, Daniel? Or what are you saying?
I was waiting until you're done. I was
Okay.
going to talk more about your Sazan reference.
Yeah, no, I mean, go for it. You can do your overall thing too.
Breakdown. Yeah, so the your Zazan's skill you're talking about is Backbreaker, where it's like the 100%. Well, not 100%, but it's like disable from behind, and like if they have disable resistance or whatever, it subtracts from that. I'll get back to that later. So my team was Elena, your Zazan, and Leart. And that was how I dealt with the 230 cost. I think it was actually 220 total. And I had a really fun time like demolishing ranged teams, like not just Lightning, but Jaden Fina teams. They either couldn't deal with the evade, or they couldn't deal with the fact that both Elena and UR Zazan had 3 lives, because I put re-raise on Elena from Zombie Ryu's TMR, and obviously UR Zazan doesn't speaks for himself. I used actually Luel's TMR on him, and all right, so I was really effective against like just straight damage teams like Cloud, Frederica, and whoever, whether it was like Soma or I'm blanking on whoever else. It might have been like Phoebe a couple times, but I especially if they weren't able to trigger courage on the second hit. Like a lot of times, like my units would end up with just like a sliver of life left and then courage. So like they would end up having to take like 5, sometimes 6 shots to fully like down them. And by then it was too late. I was already up in their face with like the other unit or Leart as well. So I did really well against most of the range teams I saw, which were a lot. I think that's why I placed so highly, because I saw so many range teams. So pretty happy about that. Really happy I didn't have to deal with reflex. So kind of all in all, this was like a win for me. The teams I struggled against were evade teams, weirdly enough, and charm teams. And I was going to ask Reindell if he had any interesting like charm plays or stories he wanted to talk about because of using OG Victoria. Her LB, speaks for itself. And if he ran into like, obviously you mentioned OG Zazan, or I think actually Locke mentioned Zazan missing a charm. But for me, the most of the charm well, actually I don't want to say it. So like 2 of my losses were from Woody wins, Woodstock wins. He used a light squad like Yuna, Elena, and Vistral, and he did me dirty with my guy because yeah, I couldn't deal really well with the charm threat on top of everybody else. So it didn't matter how many extra lives I had if I was charmed. So yeah, charm was still a huge threat, and really I should have changed it around so like Zazan wasn't using Luel's TMR and switched to like 9S's so that you can make him charm immune or whatever for 3 turns. But I was like, I'm not really running into charm too much, so like the risk versus the reward, I didn't find that it was worth it, and so of course I ran into him a second time and lost. I think I might have made it to Plat 2 honestly, but I ended up in Plat 3. And weirdly, so I said I'd come back to this. Weirdly enough, like I only had level 115 UR Zazan. I never bothered getting him to 120. I could have, tried to put him in the barracks and stuff, but I think he's at like 100 something, like Mind Sphere. So he's close, but I just never bothered. And I don't know what it is about 115 versus 120 UR Zazan, but I was really struggling against evade matchups. Um, for some reason I kept seeing like below 50%, and they were hitting me more often than not, even after using Luel's TMR for the Wish for Peace, using the Luck Up buff, using Elena's Evildoers Beware for the evasion buff. It was weird. I can't believe I struggled. And generally, I ran into players that were skilled enough to turn their backs so that for the units to turn their backs so that your Zazan couldn't use his backbreaker for the disable. And there's one more thing I want to mention before I'm done with the spiel, and it was that my RNG sucked this CM like all week. I'm sure you guys are familiar enough with Layart, but it wasn't just Layart. It was like backbreaker on Zazan. Like it didn't land often enough for me to notice it, just because of disable res or whatever. But like Layart, like didn't land a single charm and only landed like 1 stop. And she was like, I was looking at like 40 something percent. Generally it was like 31% or something, but like the 30 to 40% range, and not a single one landed. And I was just like, why do I keep trying to land these shots? Because they're not landing. And I kept falling for it. I was like, all right, the next one definitely is gonna land. Nope.
I'm due for a hit.
And some of the losses I took. How many losses did I take? I don't know if you guys remember last CM, but I missed like the first 5 matches on Wednesday. I just like slept through them. That was kind of that was like, oh. This time I was busy Friday night, and I only had I grabbed my phone and I saw it was 140, and that's so there's 20 minutes left in CM, and so I had time for 3 matches. I pushed out 3 matches in 20 minutes, you guys. I was like, I'm happy with this. I think my last match was like 2 minutes to the buzzer. So I ended up I only played 38 games. I didn't play 40, and I probably would have placed higher. But So I lost 8 games, it looks like, and a lot of those would have been dramatically different if I had landed any RNG things that I didn't land. There was one where like I had 4 chances, and any of those 4 RNG like rolls would have let me win the game, and none of them landed. I was just like, all right, I cannot believe this. At least I don't have to deal with reflex. But you know, I can't really complain because without reflex being there, it was like I wasn't gonna say easy mode, but it just took so much stress away from the match. But just really sad. Like stop arrow, charm charge. You know, obviously like Zazan's backbreaker. Um, I really wish that they would have landed more than they did. So a little salty, but I can't complain. I ended up rank 85, so top 100 is usually a win for me.
Sweet.
Yeah. And you were asking for funny charm stories. I do have a couple. I would say originally when I brought Victora in, my team had rather low accuracy. For some reason, I didn't think it would be that big of an issue because day one, it was all gunners for me. And so on my second day, I ran into, Katone's Zazan team, and she couldn't hit the other two. So I charmed the enemy Zazan thinking like, wow, he's going to either hit hard with his abilities or he's going to charm somebody. And I did not realize he had stone throw. And so that was the worst charm I've ever done. He just missed his own team 3 times throwing stones. And I was like, okay, so that's not a thing. But then against, after that, I built her for more accuracy and I had a lot more success. And I think one of my favorite moments of this season was I was fighting an enemy, Elena, Engelbert, and I'm not sure who the last member was, I think Fina. And I charmed the enemy Engelbert. And even though I was built with decent accuracy, I was still looking at like 70% chances or so against the enemy Elena, and I ended up being very unlucky and missing chains, like missing 2 out of 3 hits and etc. And the enemy Engelbert carried me. He killed the enemy Fina, and then he killed the enemy Elena twice through the re-race, through the courage, because they had Halloween Ryries TMR, and he just carried my team. And at the very end, I was like, "Thank you. Now you can die."
Hero
So,
Engelbert.
yeah, Engelbert was the carry of my team in that time because he has such a high
Engelbert
luck.
smash.
Smash.
So that was a funny.
I do have one more thing to mention. Shout out to Long Time. I really shouldn't bear any ill will to this week's CM or this month's CM because I just didn't put in the homework. Like normally I say like manage your expectations, but also like practice. You know, I was like I usually go back and forth with him in PMs, and I was like, man, I don't feel ready. I don't really have a team ready. I haven't practiced at all. I've just been busy with real life stuff. And he was like, oh, this is the team I'm using. So the team I used all week was his team. So like he also used Elena, Zazan, and Leart. And so I feel like he kind of carried me to top 100. And it's funny because we actually matched up at one point, and like I said, RNG did not go my way, so he won. But I was, I think, I can't remember, but I was ready to leave anyways and just give him the match. And I know I shouldn't say that, but I think it was just because I don't know. I think I was out of time and needed to leave anyway, so I'm just glad that he won. But yeah, I'm looking forward to next TM already.
I feel like I hate like RNG, so I try to minimize it as much as possible. Like I tried playing some games with like status effect stuff. Like I remember I did a practice match with you, Reindell, and I used like Leart, and then I was just like missing like everything. Like all I think I actually landed a couple. I think I landed 1 charm and 1 stop or something like that.
I think one game you were extremely unlucky, and the other you were crazy lucky. Like Learte reflexed twice and just landed everything. It was funny.
Yeah, and then I remember I played somebody else as well, and we were both using the same teams, and he had like everything, and I missed everything. And then we played a second game, and it was like I did the exact same things I did last time. I'm like, well, I'm probably gonna hit them this time, but I missed everything. I'm like, okay, I can't play this way. this is just too frustrating.
I'm all about 200 damage mods and debuffs. We don't have RNG here.
Yeah, and then I remember like even in previous CMs, like I like with evade, it was just like I would miss like 70% chances, like half the time, and I'm just like, this is too stressful. So that's why I started looking for like guaranteed hit units, And like I feel like King Mont is very useful because I don't even actually have to berserk with him. Just the threat is enough. You know, people like avoid him because he's the only one with berserk that people usually don't, you know, carry like anti berserk resistance just for him. So I feel like just having him on the team is not like it prevents them from coming, or you know, like it just makes them watch out for it. I don't actually have to use it, so I don't have to risk taking the, like, his faith was at 50 for like forever. I didn't even have to raise it to like 70 or 97 because I didn't actually have to use it too often. It's just good to have, you know, as a threat. Um, yeah, and so I tried playing it and I hated it. So like the status effect stuff, just because of all the chances. I don't know, it just doesn't go my way a lot of the times. So
It's funny that you mentioned that. I never got to the top 10 in class matches. The season I got the closest to was rank 23. And in that season, I was actually on a 23 games win streak, and I fought Prodigy for some reason. And his damn Liarte stopped two of my units, 2 hits in a row.
I remember that game.
I mean, this game, if we look back at the recording, I should have won. By all accounts, I had you. And you just stopped my entire team, broke the
I
win
hit
streak,
every
and I was like,
single
there
layout
goes my
arrow.
top 10.
That was on the map with the, like, it was like the temple, right, with the 2 halves that go
Yeah.
up. Yeah, I remember. Yeah. It was what, Silma, Liarta, or Liart, and King Mont, I think I used. I think that was the team.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah.
And I was running 9S
Or
to be
Luell.
in Selma.
I switched to Luell at one point.
Yeah, you did.
But yeah, that I remember that. It's actually funny you mentioned that. I didn't remember that was against you. But I was thinking that in my head the whole time. Daniel was saying how he's like unlucky with the arrows. I'm like, man, I remember that one game where I just like lobbed everything from the middle of the map and hit every single one, and it was you.
That was crazy.
I think on stream I was like, I'm so sorry. But yeah, that yeah, layout's a weird one because she does do quite a bit of damage, but if you don't hit at least say one, if you don't hit like 1 in 3 statuses during a game, she feels a lot weaker and less impactful than she should. But yeah, for my class match experience this time, I forced the mono ice again, so I went with Barrett, Curry, and Valentine Soler for the entire time. I don't think I almost switched off on the last day and said screw it. I have this kind of my opener down, so I just kind of want to stick with the same thing and get my matches in. But at first I started without Alexandrite Ring on Barrett. I was like, there won't be that much evade this time again, or I'll deal with it if it pops up. And then also Curry had what was the TMR? Oh, I had the AoE TMR from King Mont on him. Just like if I was against a team that had, you know, barrages coming or something, like, I'll just get some AoE resist. They can't penetrate it. And then the Earth Nation attacked. And I didn't see any. Oh, and I had Mask of Deceit as one of my vision card choices. So I had the Freezes, the Dragon VC, then I had the Last Wall VC, and Mask of Deceit. And man, I valued the missile resist way too high because the Pierce attack I had no value whatsoever on anybody on my team from the Mask of Deceit. So that kind of sucked. But I was like, you know what? There's gonna be a lot of Frederica, a lot of Cloud, a lot of Jaden. Like, I don't want to take as much missile damage. And like I said, the first 3 or 4 days, I saw maybe like 1 or 2 of all those teams in whatever combination. I was like, all right, we're taking Mask of Deceit off. There's too much goddamn Earth. And then I also changed the AoE resist TMR to Luell's for the stop resist because I could play around people's Katones, but I can't always play around their OG Zazan Keenblade. So trying to figure out that positioning and like making sure all my units were immune, it became basically impossible. So I also, just in case I got caught off guard, I took off Salir's, I think she had a magic passive on, and I put on the Nullify Stop, so Nullify CT changes. And I saw a drastic increase in success after all of that, because I mean, between the luck buff against the evade team and also preventing the stops, positioning outside of charm ranges from the OG, from like the charms from Zazan, it went a lot better. Curry's Frostbite barrage is so silly sometimes. Like, not only can it do a lot of damage, but if you ever hit like, there was a match I hit 2 out of 3 Frostbites, and they were both on the DPS units, and like their healer, or like it was like Yuna or Phoebe in the back didn't get frostbite, and I was like, cool, whatever. it's so backbreaking. Like there was a player that actually moved up. They used like a big skill and hit the crystal, and I'm like, I wonder if he thinks the crystal's gonna give him AP too. And it was just like this big old green goose egg. I was like, all right, this is looking good now. And a lot of the times, especially on, I saw this on Cloud a lot. If they use if they use like single buff and then barrage and you frostbite them, they get like one more anything, and then they're just auto attacking the whole game. And if you're Cloud, I mean that's melee range, and I'll just kite you the whole time. Valentine Salier Hasting was also super useful. Her LB prior to having the null CT changes was useful for the CT up. It almost seemed like she still got that bonus even after the null CT changes. I know she probably didn't, and she shouldn't, but it definitely felt like she might have. So I wonder if there's like a glitch there or something, because she definitely lapped some units that I don't think she should have. But damage capping with her LB is fun. 11.99, 9 all the time. Trying to think of like if there were any super notable teams. Actually Mono Water was pretty terrifying. I faced it 2 or 3 times, twice in the same night actually, where it was Winter Victora, Lara Croft, and Krace. Dude. Lara Croft lapped me 3 turn cycles in a row. I don't know how. I don't know why their haste was so much better than my haste, because we all had over 100. It was absurd how fast that Lara. She just stood still, pop shot, took another turn, pop shot. It was ridiculous, and I just got destroyed that match. And I kind of like, I had to sit there after. I think they had Phoebe. Oh, never mind.
Phoebe.
Yeah, it would have been Phoebe. Sorry, it would have been Phoebe. Yeah, they had either a Phoebe or one of them had I forget the combinations.
Okay.
Was it? Yeah. No, definitely Phoebe. Yeah, because they did the Speed Force too. So yeah, Lara was breezing around. Does Lara have something gives herself it though? I swear the team that was all mono water, she still had it.
Not haste.
Yeah, it must have just been the one where it was not mono water. I called it mono water because like their only damage units were Lara and Victora, but that's a good point. Yeah, there was one with Phoebe. One of them had all 3 of the like missiles. I did beat that one, but it was still pretty scary because Lara's just really fast. It was shocking. And the evasion. I mean, I had sharpshoot from Curry. I had the detonation blast from Valentine Salier. I had Barrett eventually kitted out with an Alexandrite ring, Odin, like all that fun stuff. I had changed his passive to the accuracy. Basically what I had to do last class match, and I just tried to get greedy in the first like day or 2 of this one. Didn't work for me. Then I had some success against those. Jaden was a tough matchup for me. Because by the time I faced the Jaden teams, and I think one of them also had Fina, I just didn't have the vision card anymore for the resist. So at that point, I was just kind of taking basically full damage from him. And even through like Mastery TMR, it was just brutal. I ended up at, I think it was 110 after everything was said and done. I maintained top 100 in like the 80s for most of the days, like day 3 through 7, but man, that last day I went 1-4, and it was just, it was a rough time. The first match I lost to, actually, there was one loss I'm very okay with, but so the first loss I just like misplayed against so I was on Ketone team. I misjudged range on Barrett, lost. Because I made like decisions to set me up for success had Barrett taken a turn, but he didn't, and I just lost. So then I think I lost to another variation of that. So by this time, I'm like, all right, I'm 0-2. It's the last day. God damn it. Whatever. We'll go back in. I think it was the 3rd match. I went against I gotta make sure it's the right units. Definitely Gilgamesh. I'm trying to think of who the time mage was. I think it was OG Ketone. And then the 3rd unit was, man, I cannot remember. But what happened in the match was they had Ketone precast transposition. They keen bladed.
Oh,
they ran up with like some like whatever they were at the like top thing, and then were able to run 5 spaces forward and like grab a crystal. It's like, oh, you're just dead. And then the charge went off, and they keen bladed in the back. Gilgamesh like did whatever, and then swap in, and Gilgamesh came up and just Kotetsu'd my team and one-shot all 3.
Wow.
It was the nastiest. Like, I saw it happening. As soon as I saw the transpo, I'm like, I don't even care if this is how I lose. Like, this is the coolest setup I've seen in quite some time.
It sounds like Sears' strategy.
It might have been. I'll pull up the VOD as I talk here, but
Yeah, he's really good at doing that.
yeah, it was like the sexiest thing I've ever died to. It was so nice. It was so sick.
I only
wait,
mentioned
hold
that because I got hit by that like a CM or 2 ago.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, and it was by Sear.
Yeah, let me look. I'm just combing through the matches from that stream to see if I can find. Oh, that's afterwards. All right.
But yeah, I was gonna ask you guys.
It was Sear. It was Sear. Yeah.
Was it? Oh, no way.
Oh, fuck it. Oh, that's what it was. Gilgamesh casted transpo on OG Zazan after OG. So he keenbladed with OG Zazan, ran 6 spaces forward. But because of the CT, Gilgamesh takes a turn after his transpo. So he transpoed himself and then took the turn, came up and Kotetsu'd the whole team. And then he had Frederica as the 3rd unit for like follow-up or like kind of like mid-rangey gameplay. It was disgusting. It was so good.
So
oh man.
I had somebody, I don't know if it was Sear, but I had somebody do a very similar strategy. But the thing is, they couldn't move Zazan where they wanted to because my 2 units get to go first and right after, and they would just kill Zazan. so he had to move his Zazan kind of away, and then transposition went off, and then Gilgamesh. I mean, he came forward, but he's not in range to attack anything because he had to leave his Zazan like kind of far away, right? So, but I was like, yeah, if I didn't run ranger, this would have been like really scary because there's not much I can do. And I'm like, I also have like March of the Saints always up. So, I mean, I'll just have very high agility anyway, and then agility buff on top of that. So that's why I was
Wait.
able to cut in.
You mean March of the Stag?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, I was saying March of the Saint is the anti-Doom thing. I was like, wait a second.
Yeah, that's what I meant. March of the Stag.
Real quick, I gotta shout him out. I'm gonna let's do the sequence here. So, oh damn, he's not playing very quickly. I was gonna try to say exactly what he did because it was so beautiful. I split my units like so perfectly for him to do it to me. I'm sitting here like counting my charm spaces, like, oh no, I'm in charm range. What am I gonna do? I messed up. Oh yeah, so he actually just opens with it. Oh, it's a turn 1. Oh shit, yeah. First thing he does, he moves Gilgamesh over, starts casting transpo. I do my stuff, whatever. Moves Frederica up, does... Oh, he just does some damage, I guess? Oh, did he soften up the Salir? Sorry, this interests me enough. I'm gonna take the slow thing here for a second. Oh yeah, she's buffed. And then yeah, I like Curry stood still. I'm like, I'm gonna stay out of charm range. Zazan's like, not today. Keenblade run up, transpo dead. Yeah, that was so cool. Super respect people who figure that shit out.
So in the PvP Discord, I saw a lot of people saying that they ran into a lot of people, others from the Discord. I was gonna ask you guys if you had a similar experience. Like, do you remember running into anybody else?
In slot 2 a lot.
Yeah, I played in slot 2 one day, but
sorry, I was just gonna say there were a couple of days where I played slot 3 because I couldn't find the time to do it in slot 2, and I didn't really face anyone I knew in slot 3. But in slot 2, almost every day, like at least 2 out of the 5, if not 3 or 4, just like somebody in the PvP Discord that I knew.
Definitely names I recognize, but I forget who's in the Discord now and who's not. Because I know we've gotten a lot more joining slowly over time, but there's still some names I feel like don't show up. Like Urza Rage I faced this time, and I don't think he's in the Discord. But I face him 1 to 5 times every class match. Like he's my fucking nemesis at this point. Like the chat's always like, oh, Urza Rage time. Like it's almost always after I'm on like a high too, and it's like Urza Rage comes in, and I have to like really work my ass off to not lose.
It's funny. It used to be Hellfire, and then Urza Rage was taking his throne.
Well, at first it was Duma way back in the day with the goddamn Mustadio petrifying me. Like, oh my god, he had this like charm. It was like OG Zaza Mustadio Quicken way back in like class match 2 or 3 or both, and yeah, got me real bad.
I did get a couple people from the Live PvP Discord. My first game, I opened the season against Cyan, which you saw his ranking. You know how that went. And then day 2, I fought Mako and Elzak. both with the super evasion, Katone, Zazan. Then a couple days later, Vinny. So I did have quite a few of the known matchups.
And Daniel, did
Nice.
you?
Yeah. So
You said
besides
Woody, but
besides Woodstock wins, yeah, there were a few people that I didn't expect to even be in the Discord who like were like, hey, GG, and like what could I have done differently? And I was like, oh, it was kind of an unexpected like skirt, like um, so yeah, I mean that's really cool. Sometimes like you're not expecting them to be there, and like they're like, oh yeah, here I am. So but most of my opponents, I don't think I like most of my matches were in slot 3, so I'm kind of with luck that I didn't like most of the time I didn't run into people. Um, I think my most notable one, I don't want to say most notable, but like I ran into long time. It was a mirror match, and like but I already mentioned that. So, but I do have like a last thought kind of thing that I
I
wanted
was
to
good.
mention.
I have a couple. So, Bodega, I know I faced. I got my ass whooped by him. Definitely another team where it's like I just wasn't ready for what he was doing. He was actually the Jaden, I think. That I felt like a child. Like
Oh
I didn't know
no,
what I was doing. I was like, I
no.
don't know what's happening in this match. I've never played this game before. I just flopped. Like I did
Those
nothing right. Like it was so bad. I was so off base in that
those are the
matchup.
worst
Man,
matches.
he messaged or whatever, and I was like, dude, I'm like, I don't even know. Like, I wasn't ready for that. GG. Like, I just couldn't do anything. That was actually the day I think when I was late playing, and you messaged me, you're like, hey, don't forget your matches. I literally like slept that day after work, and I was all messed up in my timing, and I didn't stream, and I had to like rush my matches real quick, and yeah, he was one of them.
Oh,
But yeah, I think in slot 2 I saw two names. I can't remember. I can't remember who specific. I just so many names all the time, but I remember thinking like, yeah, slot 2 is just so stacked with people from the Discord. Like
Yeah.
people joke around like I play in slot 3, so it's like easier or whatever, which isn't necessarily true, but at least it's less familiar people in slot 3.
yeah,
People I
there's
want to
still
see in the Discord though are in there. Like I have questions for a lot of people that play in slot 3. Like I want to like ask you about your comp or like learn these
yeah,
things, and they're just never in there.
yeah.
But anyway, you said you had some last thoughts.
Yeah, just one. I wanted to first, obviously, shout out to Cyan. Like he's been mentioned earlier. He made it to #1 again. Wasn't he #1 last time as well?
Yes.
Uh,
Yes.
so I reached out to him. He's not really comfortable um, with being on the like on an episode, but I reached out to him and he was cool with like sharing his strategy. So I'm just gonna go into that real fast.
Okay.
So like he says, his first 3 days he went with Tifa, Fred, and Fina. Tifa being the bodyguard for the 2 missile carries, but he said it felt vulnerable to against like evade rush teams. So I guess he had his share of those, probably like Earth teams. So after 2 losses with that team, he said he ended up changing to Earth evade, which was double Zazan Katon. And he says he ended up losing 2 more matches with that team as well, but he ended up sticking with it. He felt that was a better team overall. So I guess he ended up with 4 losses total, but still made it to #1. So yeah, it definitely shows the difference starting at a higher rank can be. But yeah, again, shout out to Cyan. I know he listens, and I know a lot of other people listen that may not always like react. So yeah, we just want to say that like we notice you guys, and we want to see you validated for your hard work.
Absolutely.
I kind of had a question. In general, like generally for CM, we talk about like Frederica being well, first of all, common, right? Like we see her almost in every CM, and we also talk about how hard it is, to approach and all kinds of things. So my question is, how do we feel about Jaden versus Frederica? Is Jaden like even more difficult to approach, or is he easier, or just overall? I guess Jaden generally is paired with Fina, but I mean, for me, like you can do Jaden and Crowell like I did, or you can do Jaden and Frederica, or so on and so on. But Justin, mostly just the unit in themselves, I guess. Right? Like, how do you guys feel about Jaden?
I guess I have one question before I formulate a opinion, which would be
Sure.
I don't have a 120 yet, so I don't have all the stats kind of internalized. What is his how does his agility compare to Frederica's?
I think it's very similar. I mean, I can look it up. I can tell you the agility that I had on him when I was playing.
I mean, that'd be
One
fine too. I
second.
don't need like an exact, but just in general. I'm looking on the index as well.
Generally, I would say Frederica outspeeds him.
So he had 102 agility in the formation screen with Carbuncle as the Esper.
Looks like he has 66 and Frederica has 68 when all their things are applied, although she can have more in her passives, and I forget if he has a passive with agility or not. I think he actually does.
Yeah. I think
He
it's
does,
agility
yeah.
and spirit pen or something.
And he
And
has the
then-
buff for it, so
Yeah.
And
So
then there's the fact that the Bahamut VC is best in slot for the light teams, which further
Right.
increases his agility too.
yeah, I think that's the difference for me because I mean I usually have a 15% agility card anyway, but it's +4 from that Bahamut VC, which I think pushes him over the top. Because usually I don't have Frederica over 100 agility when she's playing,
Wow.
and also I generally don't actually have her agility passive anyway. Like when I'm playing Frederica, I usually leave that off. But for Jaden, that's the agility
Same,
passive
actually.
is the best, is one of the better ones. So I would use it.
that's interesting. I normally see her above 100. Maybe that's just like in the game though, when you get
the game,
affinity
yeah.
boost and everything. I guess
Yeah.
maybe that's it. Because I generally have Shikuchi now because I like the mobility of it. I mean, it's map dependent, but a lot of times I find myself on Shikuchi plus concentrate because just, I mean, +2 range is too powerful.
I would say between the two of them, I actually favor Jaden. And there's some things that go into that, like
Sorry, when you say favor, like you'd rather play against Jaden?
no, I would rather
Oh,
play
you mean
against
he?
Frederica.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
all right.
so I would say that Jaden kind of wins out. He starts with a higher AP pool, um, which helps on smaller maps. Like when you get rushed, he can just like jamming thrust, or he can use his unerring shot for the guaranteed hit. Um, he, so he has something to deal with getting rushed without having to move. Where like as most gunners or most range units need to have that melee range. Like they need to make sure that the unit they're attacking their target is three units or 3 squares away. Generally, Frederica's Dream on, and so that helps with like lightning missile resist. But I think Jaden can more easily win out like on mirror matchups in terms of range versus range. Um, but really, I think it just comes down like he needs less startup to get going. Like you always see Frederica, like she uses bells or aimed fire right away, and Cloud usually backs her up with like a buff or two, whereas Jaden can just go. Like his buffs are nice, and obviously help, but I just think he's stronger overall, and that's really weird saying that because like I'm not Fred's biggest fan, obviously.
Yeah, I think I was gonna go similarly. Like, if as long as you can keep up in agility and Locke, were you talking specifically? Take whatever team you're using. Would you rather face one, or do you mean against each other?
No, like whatever team you're using, would you rather face Jaden or Frederica? Like, who do you think is harder to face?
I think building against them, like not necessarily like you're building a team to beat Fred or building a team to beat Jaden, but just like having intuitive ways to prevent the most damage. I feel like pairing missile with physical damage is a lot easier to plan for than pairing magical with missile. So like if my units have a physical barrier, I'm like, okay, cool, I'm against Frederica. I can predict, all right, if she double shot, she'll take off 2 charges, but typically she takes 1 charge off. So I kind of have that math. But against Jaden, like you gotta have a magic barrier, which I feel like is a lot less common, or a hybrid barrier. And then also you have to have like spirit built, which generally isn't as common as armor. So like it's really hard to figure out a way to mitigate the damage without having like knowing he's 50% of matches are against Jaden, so let's build to beat him. Like I'm you're much less to fall ass backwards into being able to handle him than you are Frederica, I think. Now, granted, Frederica has the 15% chance to be an asshole in most matches, but and he doesn't have that same reflex. But it's yeah, I don't know. I think I'm kind of on the Jaden's harder to deal with train because they also similar range, right? And if you're using Fina, you
one
also get your
less.
aim fire.
One less, yeah.
But if you have Fina, you get the aim fire buff. So I know that's not this unit versus unit, but I think that's going to be a common pairing. So I don't know.
He has a buff already that increases range by 1.
Sniper stance or whatever.
That's not attached to his stag buff though, right? So he has to buff twice if he wants both of those.
Yeah, he has to buff twice. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. I guess generally you could do the range 1 first to stop people running at you, but either way, he's definitely hard to deal with.
He gets magic reflex. This one time in arena, I was like, yeah, I got this. And then he reflexed 4 times in a row, and I was like, fuck, I hate that skill.
He reflexes a lot. In arena, that's the same thing.
Yeah, so
I mean, he doesn't get reflex, but magic reflex can still be a pain in the ass.
So I guess that's where my thoughts on the topics are. I would say things in favor of Jaden are, in my opinion, the dual damage types. You can quite, not easily, but if you decide to build against Missile, you can shut down Frederica. You cannot shut down Jaden as easily. Jaden has less range, though, and I don't necessarily agree about the starting AP that much. He can only, from the start, if he attacks on turn 1, he's out for turn 2. Like, he doesn't have that much starting AP unless he's, I guess, equipping the Red Mage passive for extra starting AP.
Yeah.
But he has the same starting AP as a Frederica would get, like, without this passive equipped, which seems like not that big a deal to me. Or maybe I would have to check it.
I think he starts with half.
It should be 50% versus 25.
Well,
okay.
Isn't it 15% for most units or 18 or something?
I think it's 18. But he starts with 18 or so. He doesn't start with like 50%.
Yeah, he starts with less. He starts with 18. He doesn't. Yeah. He doesn't have the.
Okay.
So that plays its part in my thoughts. But I think the thing that makes me want to say Frederica is harder to deal with is 2 things. First of all, Frederica has a better guaranteed hit attack. So if you're playing an evasion team and you're playing against a Jaden, chances are a lot of players I know don't really build him for accuracy because they're like, he has a guaranteed hit. His guaranteed hit attack does not hit hard. And so you can rush him and you're still fine. So for evasion rush, that's one thing. But also, Frederica has reflex. And for class match purposes, you need a win streak. Otherwise, you can't rank highly. And so that 15% chance to throw the win out of your hands and just screw your win streak, yes, it's only going to happen 1 game out of 7 statistically. But if you lose 1 game out of 7 because of reflex, you've lost your streak and you've lost your shot at a high rank because of that. And so I much prefer fighting a Jaden that I know I can win against if I have a good strategy than a Frederica where I can have the perfect strategy and still lose. So Jaden is easier to deal with, in my opinion.
Also, I just loaded up. He does start with only like 33 out of 154 AP.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, well, he has no items or anything. But.
He has a passive that gives him increased AP consumption, not consumption, or decreased
Starting
consumption.
AP.
I don't know, something like that.
Starting AP, the Red Mage passive.
Yeah.
No, but there's another one that he uses often.
Oh yeah, well, his mastery ability to
mastery. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. Because typically I've learned to play with the team that I'm using without actually needing to get any of the crystals or use bells. So if I could grab it I would, but I didn't need to. Generally I would use March the Stag twice on him. So that's 36 TP cost. So 72 TP plus I don't know whatever percent AP he gets more from that. I think it's like 40% or something, right? From
it's
his
50%. Or wait, from which?
From his mastery?
20.
20.
20,
okay,
20 decreased AP consumption.
Oh, okay. So that's what it is. Yeah. So I usually found that was enough to deal with it, unless it's like a prolonged match with like tons of full life or something. I don't know. Also, one other thing that I found, but this never actually happened in a class match, but it happened in the match battle. His what's it called? His gunner skills need line of sight, including his guaranteed hit. So if you have an evasion character, and then if you have like a Mont, just put your Mont in front of your evasion character, and he can't really hit the evasion character anymore because Mont will take the damage. So
what about Magic Blast? What about like the one that goes?
So those don't have enough accuracy, right? So if you have an evasion unit, like if you have a Kitty.
Oh, you're saying specifically just the guaranteed hit. Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you have if you're fighting against evasion and you have a ketone and you have like the regular Mont and you don't mind your Mont taking damage, just put your ketone behind Mont and he can't target the ketone anymore. So, but yeah, generally speaking, I feel like Jaden is might win out because of his jamming thrust. I mean, I mentioned it before as well. Because like I feel like for Frederica or something, like if I'm getting rushed by like a King Mont and 2 other tank units, like say King Mont, Ketone, and something else, it's going to be hard for me to deal with that team with like a Frederica built squad. But if it was Jaden and company, I feel like jamming thrust times 2 usually kills King Mont anyway. And so that I feel like that's it's easier. It's harder to rush Jaden because of his not just missile attacks but his like 200 cost jamming thrust. I think that's what, in my opinion, sets him apart. Yeah, magic damage, like very high magic damage, and usually you don't really see units that are like 100% resist or high resist to both missile and magic. Usually you're weak to one, so I don't know. That's why I feel like Jaden's harder to deal with. I saw a lot of comments saying that in the Discord. Like, they're like, "Is Jaden the new cancerous unit that came out for CM and so on and so on?" So I wanted to ask you guys' thoughts on it.
If he had reflex, I would say hands down.
Well, he just had magic reflex, right?
Yeah.
So it's a 20% chance, but only for magic.
Yeah, well, at least Magic Reflex opens you to playing around it, right? There's things you can do. For normal Reflex, unless you're playing a Drain Force build, there's nothing you can do except roll the dice. So it's a lot different.
Yeah, I guess a 1 in 7 of a unit being better versus the other unit 6 out of 7 times being better. I don't know. I feel like that. I understand the reflex argument. Like, you sometimes just lose because of it, but it's also not just like, it's not an automatic loss always. So
I agree with you. I agree. It's mainly because of the point for per win streak mechanic. Like, take that out of the equation, and I would vote for Jaden as the hardest unit to deal with. But because you want a win streak, because of the way the points count, reflex becomes a bigger factor in my opinion.
Yeah, I guess if the question is which one would you rather face versus which one's more difficult to deal with, like face in a class match specifically versus which unit is more effective or harder to deal with when actually playing the game, I think those are the different sides of that.
Not even addressing the multiple reflexes a match.
That never happens, Daniel. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
God.
Hey, at least it's not. I always say, at least they don't automatically all reflex like they used to. And they don't.
Oh yeah, that
do
was
threes.
terrible.
I just want to say I'm gonna miss this CM. These parameters were really nice.
Yeah, I really like this.
I do. Man, I did like it, but having a bridge to just filter people through in the middle is a little annoying and a little limiting composition wise, especially when you put it's kind of like that other map where we had where I double quickened Oron with like the 2 walls in the middle. What's it called? It's like Mountain Road.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that where it's like, yeah, you can traverse the middle if you have jump 2. Right. Otherwise, you got to go around a little bit before you can get to that middle. It's so slow, which puts us into this situation where everyone's like, oh, it's just gonna be missile playground. So I think with a better map, the rule set would be good.
Yeah, exactly. I'm looking forward to having like a rerun of these parameters with like another map.
Oh, by the way, I said we were gonna talk about it, we didn't. Drain Force. Fuck that skill. So good, man. Oh,
it's so strong.
So good. There were some times where my opponent used it. I'm like, bro, you're at full health. Just do something else. Like, stop me or something. Like, why are you still using it? I don't understand. Like, you won the game anyway. Why are you still using it? Save it for later.
To be fair, yes, Drain Force is a very strong skill, and I will not take that away, but there is no Drain Force user that makes it work except for Ketone, and the reason is her entire kit. It's not just Drain Force. Well, okay, I'll be curious to know your disagreement in a short while. But Ketone has the evasion, which means you could miss a couple hits. She has enough bulk to Drain Force for a large value, and that you need to hit her twice after the Drain Force to take her down. Quite often I see her with like Halloween Varus TMR or something that makes it so that she comes back to life and so can Drain Force back to full. And she has the stop threat. And remove the stop threat or another big one of those parameters, and I think Drain Force is not as big a deal. Like, yes, it's a super strong attack. It ignores reactions. You can't build against it, and it heals back. But you can play with the elevation. There are a couple ways to counter it.
Oh, for
It's
sure.
just the whole kit that becomes troublesome.
It's why
Yeah,
we
it's
don't
very
see
annoying.
Oldoa or OG Stern that much. Like, there's a
Right.
reason why we don't see soldiers, and it's because they're glass cannons.
Yeah.
No, I wasn't disagreeing. It was just like a statement like all Drain Force is bad. I'm like trying to think through like there's got to be one that's not that. But
I mean,
I'm looking at I'm looking at the list of users, and I probably agree that none of these are really great.
I've done a lot of Oldoa. I've done Oldoa in class matches, and it is fun. But the second you match a missile user, you're done. No way you cross the map.
Right.
And so that all the other ones get countered by some specific stuff. I guess the only one I could see a really good case for is Shuzelt. If you're using him as the Keen Blade protector for your gunner team, then you could easily just send him in front and start draining people to finish them off, especially if they're missile resistant teams. But that's basically it.
Yeah, I'm always on the lookout for units with soldier job, sub job, whether they get Drain Force.
I was so hoping for Summer Kelfei.
Yeah, she doesn't even get like Hazard Break.
That would have been really fun.
I mean, what's the other skill for the high level or for the job level 12?
Hazard Break.
I think
No,
Hazard
no.
Spin.
Hazard Spin? Is that what?
Let me find that.
Grim Reaper.
Oh yeah, which is so bad.
So bad. I can't believe that's the job 12 skill. Really?
Yeah, it's Grim Reaper, Drain Force, or Hazard Slash. You get one of them if it's your sub job.
Yeah.
I feel
Grim
like it's
Reaper.
a Halloween Riders TMR that kind of makes Ketone like over the top good.
Yeah.
Because I think without that, she's not as crazy to deal with.
I actually didn't see people use that every time. Like some did, and it was really annoying for the reasons we just said. But most of my opponents actually didn't. I saw some with Moshri TMR, like for some like tankiness on there. I don't even know what else I saw. Now that you say that, I actually don't think they
Wish for
used...
Peace.
I don't even know, dude. Like they actually, it was nothing notable. Like, but it wasn't re-raise because I know the times where they did re-raise, I groaned like out loud. But
Yeah.
but it didn't happen often.
There's one thing about this is I think a lot of players did not have the chance to get Halloween Raryu. And even now, the banner is still rather shitty.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping a lot of players will skip it from a competitive standpoint. But, I went all the way to pity for that TMR because it is so game changing. And on units like Ketone, it's very strong. On units like Jaden, you get a turn to buff. You got to kill me twice. Like it changes a lot of units and the dynamics and how to kill them, especially units that can self heal back.
You mean not everybody has every unit? What? It's so strange.
The global change where everyone can use that TMR, it was really big.
Yeah, I don't want to say that kind of ruined it, but it definitely was a big step in a weird direction. Like who could use it in JP? It's only like magic scaling main jobs, basically, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, Ketone wouldn't be able to use it. Zazan wouldn't be able to use it. I mean,
most of the users we have actually.
Yeah, like exactly. Most of the common users, it's like
I'm looking. Even Jaden doesn't have it on JP.
None of the charmers. Like that's a real threat for a charm unit to have re-raise.
Yeah.
I think we put it on like Ravias at one point. I've seen it like Victora. Yeah, like all those charm ones.
Vistral.
It's crazy. Vistral.
Well, for example, that's what I was going. You were talking about the Vistral. I lost a game to a Vistral, and the re-raise was a whole part of that, where I have to kill him several times before he gets to my team. I'm like, all right.
Had to have been Woodstock. I feel like he was the only one.
I think that was it, and I ended up, he ended up taking the last 38 actions of the match, just keeping me charmed and steel timed.
Yeah, he did really well.
Yeah, that was impressive.
I think the only good thing with that is that generally, especially for like Earth Evade, you have like 4 TMRs that you want, and you only have 3 spots, right? Like you want, usually if you have like, the original Mont or Zazan, you want Keen Blade. So, that's a slot taken. And then between the other 2 units, you have Halloween Riders TMR, you have Wish for Peace, and you have Washri's TMR. So you can only, you have to either leave the barrier or you have to leave the extra luck, and you kind of want both. So then, what do? You have to kind of figure it out. And I mean, so I think that's a little bit of variety because I see people not using Howling Riders TMR for the other two, or giving up a short piece or something, which then lets me use Dispel Barrage to remove Utami, things like that. So I play around with it depending on what they have. But I'm glad that they don't have all three plus Keenblade because you can only have 3 units. So that's great.
Yeah, the other one I was thinking of was Ziza, was the other major like charm threat with re-raise that we've seen in previous class matches. Yeah, it'd be so different. I mean, even for like PvE applications, I've used re-raise on like Gilgamesh a lot. I've used it on Oron before, like units that I just want to kind of Oonga Boonga into like the middle of the boss or something and just have them get revived and then healed. Like, it's been really impactful in like basically every aspect of the game. Kind of forgot about that it's different than JP. Jeez. What do they do? I guess.
I play auto. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, sadly.
All right. So yeah, Reindell, any last thoughts from you before we wrap up?
Well, again, thank you for being here. I guess last thoughts, if we go quickly, I wonder if we'll see some play for Halloween Frederica's TMR. I could see that thing be put on, like, I don't know, Halloween Little Leela, and just from across the map doing, you guys have no single target resistance. And then you send in your Ketone with re-raise. And you're like, they're already set up for my Drain Force. So I wonder if we'll see some play. It's an offensive TMR, and typically TMRs in class matches are either status immunity, utility, or re-raise, or barriers. So I would be surprised, but if it does see play, I'm curious what players will imagine with it.
Yeah, you got to crit though.
Then just crit.
Nike
What's
slogan.
the problem?
Just crit.
Just crit. Oh man.
True.
Actually, the funniest crit pun. Back in like the WoW days of like 2008 or whatever, there was a guild called I Crit My Pants. Oh man, Locke, any last thoughts from you before we wrap up?
Well, for next CM, just I mean, it's very early to talk about it, but just to think about it, right? Like we won't have a re-raise in Immortal Spirit, and we also have increased accuracy, plus 40 accuracy. So I think it'll be a totally different game from this one.
Definitely.
The Quicken is also back on the table, and so is Keenblade and whatever. So I'm really looking forward to it, and I already started like thinking of different matches, different comps I can use, and so it just encourage people to just give it a minute or two to think about as well, because these like typical evasion comps that we've been seeing lately, a lot of the Ketone Zazan ones might not really work for the next one. So just keep that in mind, keep them back of your head, don't get caught off guard.
Bruiser Zazan, let's go. Finally, you are Zazan.
It's a really small map, you guys. It's like basically, remember the old forest map? It's like that.
Yeah.
Except for instead of starting at the height, like you have a chance. Well, yeah. So like there's like a higher grounds and like the more the right next to the water coast. So yeah, definitely, I think we're gonna see a lot of high ground play, fighting for the high ground.
I've got the high ground. No. All right.
Turn 1 snipes.
Yeah, right. Oh, jeez. Oh, Curry, turn 1. Yes. Frostbite Barrage. Let's go. Or Frost Mob Barrage, whatever.
No crystal.
Probably won't be going first, though. But, yeah. Thank you, Reindell, for joining us. It was definitely great having that insight. I appreciate the large amount of input. Yeah, so we've been Let's Talk Tactics. I was Zach Bro.
I've been Danabun.
And I've been Luck.
And we'll see you next time.